Good afternoon. It's a little after 1 o'clock, and I'm meteorologist Nicholas Herboso. We are tracking Tropical Storm Debby, which is now probably about 24 hours out from landfall, maybe even a little less at this point. We thank you for joining us. We are live streaming now on Facebook and on YouTube as well. I have the comments open on both streams now, so I am able to see those. And we're going to be breaking down what's happening. We're going to be tracking some of what's happening at this moment because we are seeing impacts on land. In fact, I've already seen reports of storm surge in some places along the western coast of Florida, the Gulf Coast of Florida, and we will continue to see that along with some active tornado warnings that we have. And we'll continue to talk about that, the impacts going further, and then we will talk about local impacts as well here in the Fox 10 viewing area. And we'll just kind of cycle back and forth. We have no time limit on this one, so we can go about as long as we want. So I want you to ask questions in the comments. So if you have any questions about our local weather or any other questions about the weather going on in Florida, I'll be sure to try to get to those and answer those the best I can. But here's the situation right now. This is the 1 p.m. Central Daylight Time advisory. We have a 65-mile-per-hour tropical storm. Now, that happened as of the last advisory. So we've had a couple advisories were around 60, 65 miles per hour. We have hurricane hunters that are in there. And the last I checked, we were sitting still about that wind speed. However, very recently, in fact, we'll go ahead and go to the next graphic here that zooms in on the storm. Look at how we now have thunderstorms that are consistently blowing up near the center. That is a difference compared to what we saw earlier. If I were to pull this back far enough, you would see that we were struggling to get the thunderstorms to wrap around the center. Therefore, we really did not have a core that was organized. Now we're starting to get that. And we'll take a look at that on radar as well. But I'll take this full screen so you can see it here. This is the high resolution satellite. This is 1 minute update. It's the mesoscale floater, we call it. And this, you can get a really rapid updating imagery. You can really see what is going on down near the surface and in the clouds. And there it is. You can see the blowups of thunderstorms right near the center of the storm. And we're starting to see impacts along the coast here. By the way, if you are watching from Florida, because we are on YouTube, so this is going to be reaching a wider stream than, say, just on our Facebook Live. But if you are watching and seeing impacts, we'd love to see them and hear them so I can see what's going on as well. But there's the situation right now. This is, again, satellite imagery. So you're looking at the clouds, and we're looking near the center of circulation where we have larger thunderstorms in those darker colors now blowing up. This storm is trying to get a center of circulation together. Let's look ahead. Let's look at the forecast path now. This is for Tropical Storm Debby. The latest update, this actually was as of the earlier update, they did this track update. 90-mile-per-hour Category 1 hurricane as it approaches the Big Bend of Florida. So we have a possibly stronger Category 1 hurricane that could be coming into play here. And these are counties, these are areas that are coming off of a bigger hurricane impact. Of course, that was Idalia. And if we look at some of the landmarks, Tallahassee, of course, is just right. There we go. Just right there. So Tallahassee is kind of within the cone here. But at this point, confidence is coming in on the center of the cone here, where we could see a landfall very close to where the line is at this point, because the forecast is rather confident. But we are seeing that this will be a stronger Category 1 hurricane. Therefore, we have seen an increase in some of the surge predictions. From some of the surge forecasts are just a little bit higher. We'll take a look at those as well. We'll take a look at the current conditions as well. Now, let's go beyond this. That is Monday, 8 a.m. So Monday morning, we were talking about it late Sunday, early Monday, maybe even Monday afternoon for your timing for your landfall. And that is what we've gotten. We've continued to talk about that. Then beyond this, we've been advertising the slower forward motion of this storm. By 8 p.m., getting into Georgia possibly, and then it really, really slows down. I mean, really slows down. This is from Monday to Wednesday here. So Monday to Wednesday, you're just across maybe southern Georgia. And that is going to drop an incredible amount of rain by Thursday over South Carolina and the low country here. This could be a very historic rainfall event for South Carolina and Georgia and Florida. A very historic event. Whenever we have, and let's think to some of our local folks here in the Mobile, Pensacola area, I say Sally, I say Danny, we know what that means. This might be a situation there where we have a Danny-like storm dropping 20 plus inches of rain. Thankfully not in our local area, but over Georgia and South Carolina there. So that's something that we're anticipating in the future. Zooming out and getting the full forecast track, you can see it is a short one just because it does not move very much. Taking a look on some of our Facebook comments here, how bad do you think the flooding in Tampa is going to get? Well, we have the rainfall flooding that is going to be occurring in Tampa, and I'll actually go to the radar. We'll go to the radar in a second, but right now also right on the water, Tampa Bay, Clearwater, that region, 2 to 4 feet is are the numbers that we've been running with, and so far I have seen some evidence of that. Now, I don't have my Twitter pulled up. Good afternoon, Joyce. Nice to see you. I don't have my Twitter pulled up. I might actually pull that up in a second. I'll see if I can get some reports. That's typically how I monitor that with Twitter reports and stuff. That's kind of the best way to do that. But yes, Naomi, no, not another Sally, but for these folks, it might end up turning into something like that. Thankfully, this storm not as strong as Sally was. Sally was a Category 2, and I mean a high-end Category 2, as far up on the Category 2 scales you can go without being a major hurricane. And they actually had to up that strength after the fact. But for this, we're going into the Big Bend of Florida, rural section of Florida here, but still a slow-moving hurricane, and that is never, never good. We do have some tornado alerts to talk about right now. This is a tornado watch that has been issued for a massive chunk of Florida here, and even stretching into Georgia. This is because we already have seen many tornado warnings, and we'll look at the high-resolution radar in a second. I mean, it is active over Florida right now. It really is, and we're starting to see some of those impacts. And this is what we typically see on that northeastern, eastern quadrant of the storm. Spin-up tropical tornadoes. Tropical tornadoes are typically very, very weak, EF0, maybe EF1 tornadoes at best. So they are typically very weak, but they happen there. So we're going to be watching that, and we've already seen tornado warnings issued. Let's go to the high-resolution radar. This is live radar from the Tampa Bay radar site and some of the other Florida radar sites here. So you can see the center of circulation. I'll take this full screen so y'all don't have to look at me and y'all can just look at the radar. Here's our center of circulation. And notice we're starting to see some brighter returns around the center. This thing is trying to get a core work together, and we will be watching. Also, you can kind of see the core almost looks like it's drifting to the east here. If you extrapolate that motion, that would bring it way further south than the forecast track. This is a wobble. What we have seen, in fact, if you were watching my morning update, this is interesting. We actually had the center of circulation. When I say center of circulation, one of the swirls near the center of circulation, because this thing was still getting organized, it was moving like this, that way. And now we have one that's moving this way. So long story short, the motion is still north towards the forecast track area of the Big Bend. That will get us there. But taking a look at some of the impacts right now, putting this in, looking at places like Sarasota County, Manatee County, Hillsborough County, you know, your Tampa Bay area, Pinellas and Clearwater here. Heavy rain is falling, and in fact, if I zoom in, we now have one heavier band that is approaching Pinellas County. And so St. Petersburg, Florida, Clearwater, Florida, and I'll put this out of motion. This is one of those heavier bands that could include your tropical storm force winds, maybe even sustain, along with some gusts there. And that band will be moving in very shortly to places like St. Petersburg, Clearwater, those areas there. And I'll zoom in. Granted, I am not from the Tampa Bay area, so my Tampa Bay geography is not the best, but I tried my best to learn, so we're going to kind of work through it here. But Clearwater, St. Petersburg, Pinellas Park, some familiar areas there. The radar site for Tampa is that little circle that you see here, and here's downtown Tampa. This is Tampa Bay. Also, something to note, as the storm moves to the north, this general wind direction will eventually shift, and we will get wind that goes into the bay at some point, so we will see more surge there near Tampa Bay. So folks near Tampa Bay will be watching that very closely and trying to keep their eyes on things. No stranger to storm surge, but 2 to 4 feet, that is something to note there. Zoom out a little bit, we'll put this back into motion. We did have some tornado warnings out there earlier. I think the latest tornado warning was just inland. I think it was Polk County that had the tornado warning earlier. So Lakeland, Florida, you can see we have one heavier band here that is going to be moving off to the north and east. Quick comment on YouTube. Jason, what is your realistic outlook for Tallahassee? Of course, y'all had tornadoes recently. Boy, have you. But Dodge tropical systems recently. I actually think you're going to be in, and we'll look at some of the maps in a second, but for Tallahassee, and I know a lot of people are interested in Tallahassee because, you know, you have Florida State, you have multiple universities there. A lot of people have children that are there. And right now, based on the current track, this is a tropical storm event. So 40 mile per hour winds, 45 mile per hour winds, maybe even higher, and I'll show you that wind forecast in a second. But definitely your heavy rain, especially as this thing slows down, you're going to see some flooding. Storm surge won't reach all the way to Tallahassee. That's great. That is not an issue in Tallahassee. It is always wind and or flooding. And wind and flooding are on the table, but tropical storm force winds. If we see some wobbles, and we'll have to keep an eye on this, if we see some wobbles, the center of core of the storm could get closer, but I do not think it'll be anything that'll be drastic for the Tallahassee area, and I mean the immediate Tallahassee area there. In fact, the conditions that Tampa is seeing right now with these tropical storm conditions, it would be a similar story. Also understand that Tallahassee is on the other side of the storm, so you would be getting a more northerly, northeasterly wind instead of a southerly or southeasterly wind here. So a little bit of a difference there in the impacts. And that side of the storm is a little bit drier, so you may not see as much rain. But we'll keep an eye on that, of course, and we'll look at some of those forecast models. I have some forecast models loaded in that we can look at here. All right, I'm going to keep this going here, zooming out once again, kind of the wider area. 2 heavier bands that we are tracking right now. One right here that is moving into Polk County and also currently located in Hillsborough County. Tampa just dodging this band. They kind of had a heavier band earlier. That's downtown Tampa. And then we have this heavier band that is moving closer towards the coast here. St. Petersburg St. Petersburg definitely going to be getting this. And right now in Manatee County, you're getting some of this as well, some of that heavier band there. Let's go to the north now and take a look at some of what is going on. A heavier band approaching Cedar Key, Florida at this time, and this one could contain some tropical storm force gusts. Taking a look at some other areas, this is near Hernando, Florida. We had one heavier downpour there, but otherwise this is a little bit more of like scattered thunderstorms kind of look here. Some heavier downpours, some very squally weather. Orlando's dry right now. A lot of people ask about Disney. Disney never closes. Disney never closes. Very quiet in Jacksonville right now, and that is very true. However, weather eventually will deteriorate in Jacksonville as we go through the next 24 hours or so. But you can see a rain shield moving north here, and we will eventually be watching the radar in the Big Bend region, Florida. Right now it is dry, and there's Tallahassee. You can see we are still dry. If you're doing preparations right now in Tallahassee, Taylor County, Dixie County, is it Levy County? I actually do not know. If anybody could tell me if it is Levy County or Levy County, somebody tell me. I cannot remember. I've heard it about 1,000 times, but I cannot remember off the top of my head right now. But in this region, anybody doing preparations here, you still got a little bit of time before this gets to you. Once this band gets to you, things start to deteriorate, and you don't want to be doing that. So let's take a look at the alerts right now. Of course, everybody is under a tropical storm warning because there's tropical storm conditions that are happening right now. We had that hurricane warning that is valid for near the center of the cone here. So some of these places included here, that is your Taylor County, your Jefferson County, that is extending inland into Madison County, Florida. Lee V. Thank you, Jason. Lee V. County. I will remember that. And also Dixie County and Lafayette County, question mark. I'm asking about that one. Once again, this is not my home neck of the woods. But still trying to talk about it a little bit. So once again, some of these areas under the hurricane warning, that's the area where the core could go and we could see hurricane conditions. Notice Tallahassee on the border of the tropical storm watch and tropical storm warnings, kind of on the edge of that there. Here's a great forecast model. I'll take this full. You want to see this. This is with our graph forecast model, which has done a pretty good job here with this storm and depicting a realistic solution and a somewhat accurate solution as well. Remember, realistic and accurate, not the exact same thing. But this has also been a decently accurate solution for this forecast model. I mentioned this earlier. This is 9 p.m. on Sunday, and look at the wind direction over Tampa Bay. So that would be kind of a peak time for surge there, at least according to this particular forecast projection here over Tampa Bay. Right now at 9 p.m. we have winds offshore over the Big Bend, and that would mean Lafayette County. Thank you, Jason. But we have a wind that is offshore now over the Big Bend region, so we would not be seeing surge at that point. Let's put this into motion and keep this going further here. You see that darker orange color and that red color that develops? That is hurricane force winds getting picked up by the forecast model. That is hurricane force winds. And I will take a second to zoom in here to a couple of my counties here. That is Taylor and Dixie County. And then Cedar Key there in Levy County. But I'm zooming in a little bit further so you can see this. This orange area, this darker orange area, is the forecast model projection of hurricane force winds. That is 74 miles per hour or greater. This little red area is category 2 force winds. That's what the forecast model is saying. Now taking a look as we advance this forward, landfall happening Monday morning, and that is relatively consistent with the National Hurricane Center track, and I'll zoom back in again. Center of circulation there. Notice something about this though. Notice that the darker orange goes away once we get inland. You'll see some hurricane force gusts, don't get me wrong. You'll see some hurricane force gusts, but that sustained hurricane force wind, it gets a lot harder for the hurricane to sustain that over land. We will see some hurricane force gusts, we'll see hurricane force conditions, but it is harder for that to maintain inland. So once again, and Cedar Key can't take another hit. Let's take a look at this real quick, because if this forecast model verifies, you are getting in Cedar Key, which I know there's a few live cameras out there, which we'll be watching the storm surge. You're getting this, that onshore flow. That is when we have storm surge maxing out at that point there. And so this is going to be kind of a late night thing into Monday morning, especially if this forecast model is right. It's a little bit further ahead, a little bit faster. This could be a very, very early morning for these folks with the storm surge rolling in. We'll be tracking it, of course, there. So Cedar Key is in that one there. Also Steinhatchee, kind of a location there. Horseshoe Beach. Tropical storm winds now would be all across this kind of Big Bend region here. And then the storm starts to slow down as it moves inland. We'll go to that, and I'll clear the illustration there. And I'm going to have to move the map here. So this has it at noon right around Lake City. So there's Interstate 10 crossing the thing, 75 crossing the screen there. Tropical storm conditions. Notice how we maintain some of the tropical storm conditions there. And I zoom out. Look over the water. There's still tropical storm force winds happening. And there's still some component of onshore wind happening, especially in some of those southern counties. Once you get towards Levy County, Citrus, Hernando, you still have onshore flow that is happening there. Gilchrist County, that is one area that will see the core most likely, at least if this forecast model is right, and I hope I said that right, of tropical storm force winds there. And maybe even hurricane force winds. But as I said, once you get inland, you'll get hurricane force gusts, but maybe the sustain goes away. Also kind of depends on the strength of the storm. But as that core moves inland, you are in that. Now there's some wiggle room. You got to understand, this is a forecast model projection. This is not truth. But you can take this and, you know, push it one section or other down the coast to kind of get the idea of what this would look like. You still have those hurricane impacts, those hurricane force gusts there. So, and y'all that are in these counties need to be ready for hurricane category 1, category 2 kind of conditions. My experience from my last category 1, category 2 hurricane, my last cat 2 was Sally, where I was, you know, at home. And we did not board up our windows or anything. Now you board up right off you're on the coast and you're rushing those things to completion right now, especially if you're on the coast. You've got the shutters in, and I'm sure there's evacuation orders. I have not checked that, but I've already heard of evacuation orders in those areas. Y'all are wrapping that up because you just don't want to be there when there's, you know, intense conditions with storm surge that is moving in as well. So if you're inland, you just want to be conscious of the trees around you. Make sure you're clearing up your yard. You don't want anything to fly around. You don't want anything unsecured. You want to lock everything down. And because it's a slow moving storm, this will last a little bit longer. So you're going to be waking up tomorrow to tropical storm force conditions, and you might be dealing with them for most, if not all of the day. It's going to be just a nasty day. And that brief period, whenever the storm comes ashore, where we could deal with hurricane force winds. Once again, I'm talking about these areas right here that would see the core of the storm there. I need to check in on my Facebook comments as well. Leon County. Hold on. Okay, so we're talking about more the Tallahassee area. So I'll address this question about Leon County, and I'll go back a little bit in the forecast model if it'll let me. It may not let me. I'm going to have to do it this way. So let me do it. Come on. Okay, so let's look at this, and let's look at the Tallahassee area. Now we're going to go through this projection looking at the Tallahassee area. You see how we're kind of on the edge of this. Tallahassee here on the edge of even the tropical storm force wind. This forecast model does not have tropical storm force winds over Tallahassee. I think there will be tropical storm force gusts, and I would not be surprised on one of these squalls, one of these bands that pass through, we could see some tropical storm to hurricane force gusts. Let's see, what does it say? Hold on. Showing hurricane force winds for Tallahassee. This is based off of this forecast model. You're right, but we'll take a look at that in a second. I have that hurricane threats and impact graphic pulled up. I've been meaning to get to it for the past 10 minutes, but I keep stalling here. I'm talking about this forecast model. But this forecast model in particular has tropical storm force winds in Tallahassee, or at least tropical storm force gusts. So that region, you're dealing with a tropical storm, and I think we've been kind of advertising that the entire time. Here's that thing that we're talking about. This is the Hurricane Threats and Impacts. This is a product that's been out for a while. This is a great product by the National Hurricane Center, and you can find this online. If you need any information from the National Hurricane Center, go to the National Hurricane Center website. You see this red area here. That's where hurricane force winds are possible. Now, Tallahassee kind of on the edge of that, and understand that this model is accounting for anywhere in the forecast cone. So if the storm happens to go to this section of the forecast cone, it's always good to refer to the forecast cone once again. It kind of puts us back in the correct space here. We see hurricane force winds right on the coast here. They come closer to Tallahassee. We could see very strong tropical storm force winds if this track verifies. And I want to draw this out, if a track like this were to verify. But understand that anywhere in the cone, we have the options here. Typically, we don't see this thing go outside of the cone in this short time frame here. And we'll have to look at the radar to look at some of the latest trends there. But once again, this red area is the overall area of like, okay, could you see could you see hurricane force winds? And there's plenty of communities involved in this. What about this orange area? This is 58 to 73 mile per hour winds. That is possible, I think, in Tallahassee. I think that is very possible, especially with some of the stronger bands, if some of the bands do move through. So kind of getting some idea of what the forecast is there. You have those tropical storm conditions expected. Could we see some stronger tropical storm conditions? We could. And in the short term, we'll watch the track in Tallahassee. Does the center of the storm come closer? If the center of the storm does come closer to you, you could push some hurricane force gusts there. So try to talk through that there. Of course, you see one community in the bullseye there, Perry, Florida. And I'll take this full so you can see. Perry, Florida, they are no stranger to tropical impacts, because of course we had a Dahlia very recently there. All right, I'm going to switch gears. Let me double check the comments, make sure. Hello everybody joining on Facebook. And for my local people on Facebook, I know I'm focusing on the Florida areas right now. We are also streaming to YouTube, just trying to talk to both audiences here, because we have plenty of people watching in both streams. So that was the wind impacts that we're talking about. Now let's switch impacts. We're going to talk about storm surge, which this is a significant concern. That bright pink area that you see there, this is a storm surge warning that has been issued. This is a widespread storm surge warning. Includes Tampa Bay, includes that whole entire Nature Coast, includes all the way to places like Apalachicola there, all dealing with potential storm surge. Let's look at the numbers. So there it is, zooming in, Cedar Key, Steinhatchee, all included, you know the deal. 1 to 3 feet in the southern part of the state. That is pretty much verified. I have already seen reports. And you know what? I'm actually taking a look at this. Let me see this. Significant storm surge, Fort Myers Beach, already seeing 2 to 4 feet. Along with high tides. And I'm seeing some pictures, so I can't show this to you guys, but if you go on social media, you'll be able to see this, and I get regular reports from social media. I'm looking at some video right now from Fort Myers, and that is 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. There are buildings that have water there. So once again, this is verifying. This is happening now, 2 to 4 feet of storm surge. I am pretty confident as this thing, especially as the storm moves north, that we see some kind of storm surge in the Tampa Bay, Clearwater, area, and then St. Petersburg area as well. And let me advance this forward, and let's talk future here. Let's talk the Big Bend and the Big Impact, which is 6 to 10 feet of storm surge possibly. This is an extremely storm surge prone part of the coast. We think about the shape of the underwater near the coast here. It's relatively shallow. It's easy for the water to get pushed in here. It is very easy for the water to get pushed in. Therefore, we are expecting a pretty significant surge, even though this is a Category 1 hurricane that we're expecting at this point. Cedar Key, 4 to 7 feet. Then you go points north, 6 to 10 feet. Some of the counties included in that would be, and I got to look, it looks like that starts more at Dixie County and then goes to Taylor all the way to McCullough County. And then once you get to Apalachicola and Franklin County, Carabel, 4 to 6 feet there. That's of the latest track. A lot of confusion sometimes happens about this. That's why I keep the user notes up there. I always like to say, if you're standing at the beach, standing where the water would typically be, add 10 feet. of water and add some waves on top of that. So that's kind of an idea of what you can get. Always good to know your elevation. There are other storm surge maps. If you go on the National Hurricane Center website and you're on the coast and you're curious about this, there is a map that you can find that actually you can zoom in to like street level and actually get an above ground level view for your specific location on a map. That's why we encourage you to know where you are on a map as well. It helps you out so you can figure things out like this. But for us here, we're using this map. It's a little easier to look at and a little easier to see. 6 to 10 feet right in the Big Bend region. Questions about Daytona and rain. Let me go back a couple graphics. And we're just going to kind of live track this. I got a few graphics in here. There we are. So Daytona Beach right now, already seeing these thunderstorms. And I'm glad that this happened. Look near Gainesville, we have a severe thunderstorm warning. Some of these are thunderstorms, almost like a typical summertime Florida thunderstorm here, except they're just packing a little bit more of a punch and they're moving a little quick. But Daytona Beach right now, Daytona dealing with some light rain. The rain shield will be kind of skirting you over the next few hours. I think by this evening, you're going to start to get into some more steady rain. And we'll take a look at one of our Futurecast models in a second so we can get an idea of this. And once you get to about this evening, it'll be off and on rain for a while. Depends on where the center of circulation stalls, of course, but especially by this evening, I mean, you're already dealing with consistent rain, but by this evening, we will really be cooking over there with decent, moderate rain, light rain at times, kind of squally weather like the rest of Florida is dealing with. All right, skipping ahead, we're going to go back to some of those storm surge graphics here. So once again, 1 to 3 feet happening near Fort Myers, Captiva, Fort Myers Beach. We're seeing 2 to 4 feet of storm surge now, expecting 2 to 4 feet of storm surge near Tampa Bay, Cedar Key 4 to 7, 6 to 10 feet in the core area where we see landfall likely happening. A good question here about Jackson County, Florida. Talked about Tallahassee earlier. When you're in Jackson County, Florida, you are to the west of that. You are farther out from all of the stuff. Granted, we have been looking at the forecast cone. If it does take that far western side of the forecast cone, you might get tropical storm conditions, but really you're on the dry side. You may be mostly dry with just a few showers, squally showers, some tropical storm wind gusts. That's kind of the deal there, especially once you get west of Tallahassee. Northwest, of Tallahassee, things will start to calm down. We could still see rain, though, there with some squally conditions. Speaking of rain, let's talk about flash flooding. This one's serious. Moderate flash flooding risk for today, that's an understatement. We are going to see some significant rainfall, and haven't checked this in a little bit. This is the latest on the rainfall totals. You see our bullseye over the Big Bend around 12 inches. That is very possible. Some of these coastal areas in Florida here, some of the coastal areas right on the west coast of Florida could see some of the highest rainfall totals. Those areas inland, like the Space Coast, seeing a little bit less. This is a 7-day rainfall forecast, by the way. Around 3 inches, while you have closer to 7 to 10 inches right on the coast. And then the bullseye will be wherever the core of the storm is, where we could see that 10 to 15 plus inches of rain there, so around a foot or higher. Taking a look beyond this, we've been talking about how the storm stalls after the fact, and 10 to 20 inches is not out of the question. I'll go back to my folks that are probably watching on Facebook. I say the word Danny and eyes go wide. For us locally here in the Moby Pensacola area, Danny is kind of our storm of record of like insane rainfall, and this could be that kind of level of historic for southern Georgia, southern South Carolina here, coastal South Carolina. So Savannah, Charleston, all going to be dealing with those extreme rainfall issues there. Airfields tomorrow, I'll talk about airports in general. There are going to be some delays. There's going to be a lot of water over there, especially in the region. Once the water starts pouring, we're going to probably start to see some some more significant airport issues, especially around and north of Jacksonville, like in your Savannah, like in your Charleston, just because there's going to be so much rain falling, and the core of the storm will be sitting over the area. So Jacksonville, so it's hard to tell, but expect delays, expect some maybe cancellations just if the rain is too much, especially in that period as the storm passes. We're talking Monday morning, Monday afternoon into Tuesday. That's when stuff gets really disrupted. I think if you're Orlando south, we're not as bad. Places like Orlando, Tampa Bay will probably get back going at some point, especially as the storm moves to the north. This gets always a question about airports and stuff like that, especially when we're in Florida. They deal with it all the time because they deal with summertime thunderstorms. We'll see some delays. But if this becomes more significant, which we're expecting with the heavier rain, we might see some more significant stuff. You'll want to check with your airlines and check with all of the airports that you're with for weather updates there. All right, let's switch gears once again. We're going to take a look at the forecast path once again here. 90-mile-per-hour hurricane making landfall near the Big Bend. Please note, and I'm going to zoom into this here, the width of the forecast cone here does put Tallahassee in the cone. A lot of the projections are on the eastern side of the cone here, but I have to honor the cone here. And I was saying, tropical storm force conditions in Tallahassee. If this thing does happen to take that side of the cone, expect that high-end tropical storm force to Category 1 hurricane. Again, that's not terrible. Could be worse, but just keep that in mind. And then looking beyond this, and this is going to zoom out pretty quickly here, South Georgia, the low country, places like Charleston, and into North Carolina, dealing with a slow moving tropical storm. All right, let's go ahead and take a look at the Futurecast model. I have this zoomed in on our area. I will zoom this out in a second, and we'll take a look at a wider shot. I do want to speak to my local area, Mobile, Pensacola, real quick, where we're dealing with showers and thunderstorms today. About a 40% chance of rain, some fast-moving downpours around our area. Notice rainfall in the Big Bend region starting to commence here by this afternoon and this evening. Some heavier squalls there. Tallahassee getting into the rain this evening as well. Panama City as well. Notice there's a pretty sharp cutoff from the actual rain bands, though. And look at that, the complete cutoff there. This forecast model has little rain in Tallahassee. Now, shift this over a few miles, and you see way more impacts in places like Tallahassee and Apalachicola. You just got to shift it over. Understand that this can move. This is just one model projection. One thing we're confident in locally here, this is a northerly wind. It is going to be dry, and especially Monday, Tuesday, a lot of kids are going back to school here locally. It is going to be dry and hot for us. We have mostly sunny skies, a few cirrus clouds around the center of circulation while we have the storm off to our east. There's that landfall, 6 a.m. Monday on the radar. So Monday morning, this forecast model projection points to understand that there's some wiggle room. Could be over here, anywhere in the forecast track. And then the storm starts to move inland, and then the slow march begins. This is going to be a slow process. Some intense conditions with tropical storm conditions and heavy rain falling in Jacksonville. This is Monday. As I mentioned, Monday in Jacksonville is going to be very rough. And then the movement is even slower. Now, this is a better model projection. Look at all the dry air coming in after this. Places like Panama City, Tallahassee. If this forecast verifies, by Tuesday, Tallahassee, you are dry and very hot. If this verifies, or you're starting to get hot. But understand this could sit closer to the Big Bend region. It could stall a little sooner. There's still some uncertainty there. Whenever you have a weak steering flow, that's just the deal. I'll zoom this over. By this time, we're getting heavy rain in Charleston, and this is becoming the flash flood disaster that we could think could happen, just because we're going to see a lot of rain. And a lot of rain is pretty serious there. So there's that certain circulation, and we'll leave this forecast model for now, but just kind of remember that picture. That'll be sitting there for the next few days. Locally, we do have some issues. Rip current risk increasing. I've been watching some of our live cameras at our local beaches, your Orange Beach, your Pensacola Beach. I'm starting to see that the surf is increasing a little bit. So we have that medium risk of rip currents that takes into effect probably by now, By now, it's no longer low. It was low this morning, probably taking into a medium risk rip currents. That'll continue through Tuesday for us locally. And folks that get out of the rain and get into that dry northerly wind, we're going to have issues with temperatures after this. It is going to get pretty hot, especially those of us that are closer to the Mobile, Pensacola area and staying dry the entire time. Our temperatures are going up, 99, 100 degrees here locally. Forecast highs for Wednesday. 98 Crestview, 100 Bay Minette, 100 Mobile. Notice that you're even seeing some brighter colors here as you get closer and closer. Even Panama City, places like that, will still be dealing with some very hot conditions under mostly sunny skies. So Wednesday, looking like an extremely hot day for the Gulf Coast here. Heat index is going to be crazy next week, around 105 to 110 degrees, so let's be ready for it. And our local 7-day outlook shows us some pretty big time heat. Wednesday, Thursday, 100 degrees with a northerly wind. It's just kind of the pattern that's setting up around this storm that gives us these drier conditions and these hot conditions. So that's something we're going to be watching there. This is broadcast from the Mobile, Pensacola area. I know a lot of times when we do hurricane live streams, a lot of people join us from elsewhere. I will pull up the maps and we can actually show where we are. And we'll go to some live radar stuff as well here. We'll restart this actually. There we go. So we are broadcasting, of course, from the Mobile, Pensacola area, which is, of course, on the central Gulf Coast. There you are in Mobile. So this is not really in our area, but enough that a lot of people are around here. A lot of people have interest in the Big Bend and or Peninsula. So just wanted to come on here and talk about the storm. Looking at the satellite imagery recently, we do still have that core of thunderstorms right near the center there. And also, let's look at track over the last little bit here. I'll take this full. Let's look at the forward motion here. That's still northwesterly. So that is why some of these areas like Tallahassee are still in play here. And we're going to be watching that. I'm going to have the wobble tracker up on our 24/7 live stream. If you have not checked out our 24/7 live stream, we have some of our hurricane graphics like this one here on a 24/7 live stream available on fox10tv.com. Hoping to maybe get that streaming to YouTube at some point. Maybe when we end this, we'll get that streaming to YouTube. But these graphics online, you can see the live picture. I have that high resolution. Actually, I have this one here. I have that high resolution satellite imagery on that stream as well, so you can actually look at the 1-minute imagery of the storm, see exactly what's happening. But looking at it now, once again, you can get that on fox10tv.com. That area, see those kind of whites that start to develop? Those are some stronger thunderstorms near the center. That is telling me, just looking at this, that we're starting to get our act together a little bit. We'll see if this maintains itself. We'll see if this maintains itself. I'm going to skip ahead of a couple things here. Let's skip the path for now. Once again, we have that tornado watch, and let's check in on the live radar here and see what is going on. So it looks like we have no active tornado warnings at this time. The center of circulation sitting about, where's my measuring tool? There it is. From Tampa downtown, we're about 100 miles out from that central swirl there. About 100 miles out as the crow flies. Looking at the motion on radar, kind of seeing that, and this is where we get the wobble. This thing is going to wobble like this all the way up the coast until we get to our landfall point somewhere in that region. So understand, we get to hurricane time and it gets wobble and people start to go crazy looking at it. And once you've looked at it for many hours, that's how it feels. But let's take a look at the impacts and kind of stay focused here. Tampa, you're about to get a bit of a heavier rain band. In fact, it looks like that rain band might have moved in at this point. Let me zoom in. Yep, there it was. See that bit of heavier rain there passes through Clearwater, St. Petersburg. I wonder if we got any wind gusts out of that. I'll have to be checking some social media stuff. Still have a heavier band right now in Polk County there. Zephyr Hills just dealing with, actually the Zephyr Hills, you're actually getting the band that is now coming at you. So you can probably see a little bit of squallier weather, gusty winds starting there. I'm going to zoom out a little bit again. Let's take a tour elsewhere. Venice right now, Sarasota, dealing with heavy, heavy rain. This is tropical storm conditions, most likely. In fact, I will switch us to the velocity product here, and we will get a sample. Understand our radar in Tampa, so we're kind of shooting into the air here, but we can get an idea of some of the wind speeds that are being observed aloft. 50 miles per hour, 57 miles per hour, now 67 miles per hour. That's really high up in the atmosphere, so subtract a little bit from that, but we're still dealing with likely some tropical storm force gusts, and there's a likelihood that we see some of those gusts near the surface as well. So once again, tropical storm force winds there. Port Charlotte as well, dealing with some storm surge. I've seen some of those pictures there. As I mentioned, Fort Myers there as well. Going back to the reflectivity, we're going to keep going south here. Understand we have a flash flood warning for places like Naples, Marco Island, and I will get that information. I'm actually going to read the warning for you here. So this warning, this flash flood warning, has been issued at 2:49 p.m. Eastern Daylight Time. Doppler radar indicated rainfall amounts of 3 to 5 inches that have fallen in the last several hours as training bands move across the area. Additional rainfall amounts of 1 to 3 inches are possible in the warned area with the ongoing feeder bands over the next couple of hours. Flash flooding is already occurring. Some locations that will experience flash flooding with this particular warning include Naples, Marco Island, Golden Gate Estates, Belmead, Cape Romano, North Naples, Naples Park, Everglades National Park. So just a few areas there in that flash flood warning because of one particular area of heavier rainfall there. That is in Naples, Florida. Looking up to Fort Myers, I'm actually going to try to take us out. I'll take this full so you don't have to see me looking to the side here. I am going to take a second here and try to look at some of the reports coming out from this region. Keep an eye on things here. High surf, some street flooding I'm seeing there. And I did see a video earlier of some more significant street flooding that was happening in Fort Myers. Let me see if we get anything. Fort Myers Beach, yes. So and when I say Fort Myers, I'm saying Fort Myers Beach right on the coast here because that's storm surge that I'm talking about. Water rising on homes in Fort Myers Beach. Fort Myers Beach currently flooding throughout. I'm just kind of reading some of these reports as I see them. Another Fort Myers Beach report. Now this is interesting. Pasadena near St. Petersburg. St. Petersburg, Clearwater, now starting to see some flooding as well. This looks to be street flooding that I'm seeing. So yes, we are definitely starting to see this flooding commence here. It looks to be around 1 to 2 feet, 1 to 3 feet, which is consistent with our forecast here. Storm surge just after high tide, and of course they were just dealing with high tide down at Fort Myers. Friends from our Fox station there, I'm looking at a live camera, Anna Maria City Pier. It looks like water rising there. So just a couple notes there. So water rising along the western coast of Florida here. Storm surge is happening at this time. We're on the live radar right now. Venice, Sarasota getting some very heavy rain at this time. We talked about a tropical storm force winds. Tampa, heavier rain right now. Likely seeing some coastal flooding here, as I mentioned, if I zoom way in here. In some of these smaller areas right on the coast, probably seeing some small coastal flooding, but we are not at the point where the wind direction is like this yet. So understand that we've got a ways to go in Tampa. I'm going to take a look north now. This is where the wind is offshore. We do still have some heavier rain going on. Lakeland, Willow Oak dealing with a heavy band right now. And going north, communities like Spring Hill, just heavier rain at this time. Orlando, looks like we're starting to get into some of the light rain at this point. Cedar Key now having a full-on rain band happening at this time. So some heavier rain that is happening there. Of course, all of this will continue to deteriorate. Conditions as the storm moves north will deteriorate in the Big Bend region. Taking a look at Daytona Beach, some light to moderate rain happening. There is a gap near Orlando that is just to the east of Orlando. That might pass through, and then we get more rain as the rain shear gets closer there. So once again, that's the situation right now over Florida. Starting to see some flooding occurring at this time. Any more questions, I'll be able to address them in the comments. Otherwise, we're probably going to switch this over. I might leave the stream running as a 24/7 type stream, or I might plug in our 24/7 stream so you can have this streaming on YouTube as well. I know lots of people are liking watching those on YouTube. Once again, if you want more information from us, also check out your local stations. Of course, we highly recommend. We are a Fox station here in Mobile, so if you have any local stations, of course, our Tampa Fox station. And we have a station in Sarasota, a sister station as well, and also stations in the Big Bend region that you can follow. Check out your local information. Also check out your local National Weather Service for the best information. That is the best way to go. They will provide detailed information for your community. You have to do a little reading, but you can get it, and you will get the details that you need to know. Also, check out the National Hurricane Center for the latest information and updates. We should be approaching, we'll be looking for our next advisory coming at 4 o'clock Central Time, and that'll be kind of the next bigger updates. So, happy to answer the questions. We thank y'all for joining in. If you have any other questions, drop them now, because we do have some people watching on YouTube, and I hate to leave them. But we will check back and we'll do other live streams if necessary. We're going to switch this to a 24/7 stream with some of the graphics. But just wanted to come in after the 1 p.m. Central Time update, get you a little bit of update. Once again, locally, no impacts expected. But if you're in the Big Bend, you're preparing for a hurricane, possible tropical storm, strong tropical storm conditions in Tallahassee. Could we see a hurricane force wind gust if the storm gets closer to them? Yes, that is very true. Also, storm surge ongoing right now. Fort Myers Beach, places possibly north now at this time, already seeing some evidence around Tampa Bay, and that'll continue to worsen over the next little bit as the storm approaches and moves along the coast there. So I'm meteorologist Nicholas Herboso with Fox 10 News. We thank you so much for joining us here. If you have any questions, you can always find us on social media. My social media handle at KNBHWX, kind of like an airport code, KNBH, my initials, then WX for weather. Or you can search Nicholas Herboso on Facebook or Twitter, and I'll be able to answer any of your questions. I'll be here for the rest of the day. We're tracking it all right here on Fox 10. We thank you so much for joining us. Leave you with a radar view. Once again, make sure you're staying safe.